Aya Cheke. Can you all say Aya? Aya. Mahaotepe. Good job. Just making sure everyone's awake. That's our general greeting in Myaamia. Te pewa neola kakoke cheke, chingwia wenswaane, nila Myaamia ta wenge ne pwangia. Ne pwane nehe ne pwanga ne Myaamia ta wenge. Te pewa kwechmiane ine, ishe ka piayane, katea tota mula koke, ishe meh kimwane. Hi everybody, my name is Jarrid Baldwin, and I'm a member of the Myaamia tribe of Oklahoma. And as she mentioned, my dad is Daryl, and so I grew up speaking the language as he was learning from documentation, as him and my mom were. They were teaching it to me and my 3 other siblings. And while we were homeschooled up until sophomore year of high school, and then we went into public school. And from there, I went on to Myaamia University in Ohio, where he mentioned in his presentation yesterday, that's where the relationship between the Myaamia tribe and Myaamia University exists, where the Myaamia Center is. So I studied anthropology there. I studied specifically linguistic and cultural anthropology with a focus on languages. I've always been interested in studying languages. I studied abroad a couple times. I learned Kiswahili, which is from East Africa. I studied over there for a short time. And then I also learned German, and I'm currently learning Spanish. And so I've always really had an interest in languages, and that's kind of what's driven my interest in being part of the language revitalization efforts. So, so I graduated, like I said, I graduated in 2013. So right now I'm 24 years old, and when I graduated, I was looking for jobs. I didn't yet work for the tribe, but I was interested in it. And Julie Olds, who is head of the Cultural Resource Office, she contacted me and said, "Hey, I'm interested in having you work for the tribe. Would you also be interested?" And I said, "Of course." And she said, "Okay, well, when do you want to start?" And I said, "Right after I graduate." So I need a job. And so she's like, "That sounds great." And so I asked her what the position would be, what she's interested in having me do. And she said, the main goal is to bring more language and culture to the community at the very base of it, okay? And starting with that as the foundation, we built my job description and the sorts of functions that I would be a part of and be heading within the Myaamia community. So in this presentation, I'm going to give a little overview about our community's revitalization efforts and how they relate to the How Do I Say method that Ine already introduced. And so, and then I'm gonna pluck some pieces out of that method and discuss how we're already implementing them, and then also talk about the How Do I Say method as a whole and how we could possibly implement it. We're not currently using it in its holistic sense, but I've reviewed it, like she said, and I'm very interested in using it in the future. And so amongst us who are in charge of the revitalization efforts, we've really looked into how we could use it in the future. And so I'll talk a little bit about some of the changes we might make to it to have it more tailored to our community. So, oh, that's working up there, not here. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay, so here's the Myaamia community, okay? This is a different map than what my dad showed yesterday. This was done by someone, Brad Kasberg, who works also for the Cultural Resources Office, as I do. And he developed this map so we could really look at where the hotspots are for the community. And as you can see, we are spread out all over the United States. We even have some here in Albuquerque. And so this is the community that I work with, okay? And as you can see, we're spread out all over, and I'm only one person. There's a few of us who do get to travel and work with the community as a whole, but it's very difficult when there's only a few of you working for about 5,000 tribal citizens. And so, as he pointed out yesterday, we have the hot spots, which I have down here. Starting up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, that's where our traditional homelands, and then we were removed to Kansas, Paola, Kansas more specifically, and then to Myaamia, Oklahoma. So this is a current map from this year, and so this shows where people are now. And so what's kind of been built around my job is doing outreach. And so we have this population scattered all over, and we want to know what they're thinking, what they're using, if they're using the products that we put out to all the families, or if they're even interested in learning the language or the culture or whatever it may be. Because of the fragmentation that occurred with removal, people have become very disconnected from the tribe, from the government, from the language and the culture. And so first step is just getting to know the community and seeing if they're even getting the newspaper, or if they're reading it, or if they're getting any of the phrase books that we send out or anything of the sort. And our focus for the community is to rebuild it, to reconnect everybody to each other, as well as to our traditional knowledge system. Okay, so that's the primary goal. And in terms of our language teachers, we are not fluent. Many of us are at varying stages of language knowledge, and so some of us can have pretty good conversations in the language. Others are still working up to that level. So since there's such a wide range of users of the language, we just like to use the term users. Okay, so we're actively learning or using the language on a regular basis. And so the spaces that we currently have and that we're looking to have in which we can use this language is kids camps. We have a daycare, a summer daycare that we just started in Myaamia, Oklahoma, which is where our government is, so a lot of attention is focused down there. That's where also a large population is. And then we have community gatherings. We have annual gathering and winter gathering. And the Myaamia tribe students at Myaamia University, which my dad mentioned earlier yesterday, they are, there's about 25 of them, and they come to the university either knowing nothing about the Myaamia tribe or having a decent grasp of the language, especially if they've come up through our kids programs. They have a very good grasp of the language and culture. So they're all varying levels of understanding of the language and culture. So since I work at Myaamia University, those are the ones I interact with the most, and they're my age. And so I can connect with them maybe at a different level than somebody older than me can. Did that change? All right. Let's see if it works again. Okay, so in regards to the how do I say method, like I mentioned, I pulled out 3 key aspects of it that we either are currently using, are implementing, or are very interested in actively working towards implementing. These 3 features being self-directed learning, which we've talked about a lot in previous presentations, and this is where the student or the learner of the language is actively engaged in directing their own learning of the language. And so this is something that we've always worked for and work towards. And so a large part of our publications and our any of the works that we create are geared towards this. Okay, master apprentice model is typically where you'd have somebody who's fluent or somebody who has a proficiency in the language, and they're working either with one student or maybe 2 students to pass on as much as they can in as quickly as of a time period as they can. So a very intimate educational experience. This is something we haven't worked towards too much, but I'll get to that a little bit. And then natural language learning, and this is places where anybody from the community can come in and be a part of the community while hearing the language, while being in as much in an immersive setting as possible that we can do in our situation. And if they so choose, be a part of the language and learn it and use it amongst all of us. And so I'll continue to go into. So self-directed learning, and I'll talk about these different items and things that we have geared towards this. Okay. Phrase books. So we printed phrase books over the past couple years and distributed them to all the households. And this was done by the Myaamia Center, although I did play a role in that. And these are geared to important and necessary everyday words and phrases for the community and for in the home, okay? Because we really want to focus on in the home. We think that that's the key for revitalizing the language and maintaining it as it continues to grow. So those phrase books, the dictionary, we have a printed and we have an online dictionary, but we realize printed dictionary, as we continue to learn the language more for ourselves as those creating it, these dictionaries, we continue to have to change things because we're learning new information from the old documentation. And so the best place to continually update is online. And so my dad demonstrated the online dictionary. Back to self-directed learning. We also have apps that my dad demonstrated a little bit. We have Memrise, and that you can learn at your own pace. The kind of the algorithm or the science behind it is to work at the language 5 or 10 minutes at a time in the morning, in the evening. Nothing strenuous, but it's an easy time to learn phrases and words at your own pace, and you can have it tailored, and it's completely free. And so I've created lessons on different topics. If people ask me, hey, I want to learn numbers 1 through 10, I say, okay, I'll make a lesson really quick, and I'll let you know when the link is up. And you can add audio files to that and even videos, and so that's been really useful for us. We've seen it, the usage of it increase over the past 2 years, started about 2 years ago. And then Nika, which is the in-home app, and he demonstrated that video, so I won't go into that, but it has audio files, and that's a way for somebody to learn at their own pace in their home. If they want to learn how to say stove, if they have the little barcode up, they can actively engage with that. Master apprentice model, like I discussed. We don't have anything on this currently. This isn't feasible for us right now. The closest thing I can come to is language tables, which I host for the Miami tribe students at Miami University, and those are places where they can come and informally talk about the language, ask questions in the language, or ask about the culture or the history or whatever it may be. And I can either answer the questions or I can't. That's a big thing. Since us as teachers are still learners also, we make it very clear that we don't have all the answers and that we won't always know the answers, but we can look them up or we can begin to investigate those sorts of things. And also that we mess up. And so when they see us mess up, especially the students at Miami University, when they hear me make a mistake, they appreciate nothing more than correcting me or yelling at me and saying I said it wrong, which I'm completely fine with. You know, as soon as they come into as soon as they become part of the community, we try to make it known that, you know, we're all going to make mistakes. We don't know everything. And so if we can just get past this barrier of being scared to speak it or say it properly, then we can just move on and continue learning the language. And it's going to take time, you know, because people are coming from English. The language is definitely not similar to Myaamia, and so the pronunciation is going to be a little off. I mean, my pronunciation is off. And they know that, but they also know that if they speak it and continue to speak it more and more, they'll get more and more accurate in their pronunciation as they learn more. So that's been a big focus for us. It's the same problem, I just don't know how to fix it. So anyways, on to natural language learning. This is the biggest thing for us. This is the most growing field for us as we try to engage the community in more events, more activities related to language and culture and really community building. Like I said, the community was fractured to the point where people didn't even know what the language or what the culture was or anything about it, or even that they were Miami. We have kids coming into Miami University saying, yeah, I just heard I was Miami last year. And so this is new to me. So what do you guys do? It's like, oh, well, this is your culture too. And then so there's kind of a process of engaging them in the community and having them learn what a Myaamia identity is. And we use that predominantly with these areas, these domains. So workshops, outreach workshops, which is the very beginning. I'll interact with the community out in Washington State, down in Texas. Back to my map, you remember everybody's kind of scattered. Well, I'll go to these hot spots and I'll try to engage the community in what the Miami tribe is as a government, as a cultural, our own cultural entity, and then what the language is and if they're interested in learning the language. And then community gatherings, which have been growing for the past 20 or so years. We have annual gathering where our voting takes place. And what we've surrounded annual gathering with is language classes with family day. So it's just a fun day for everybody to get together and kind of build that identity of being Myaamia. And then, like I mentioned, language table. And this is for the Miami University students of all levels to learn a little bit more about the language in an informal area where they don't have to be scared or intimidated of learning the language or asking questions that they would think are stupid, like, what's the Miami tribe? You know, we get that question a lot from our own community. So those are the kind of places that they can really ask those questions and be comfortable asking them. And then kids camps, A1 Zapata, which is a summer youth camp we have. That's very important. And kids ages 10 to 16 go there. And then Sakacha Weta, which is a little bit the age group before that, I believe 5 through 10. Nusa, is that right? Yeah. And that's a place where we're going to start implementing the language into it as we continue to build the number of kids there. And then obviously online use of sound files. This is kind of on a lesser note because you can't really get an immersive setting from audio files, but it's something to help. It's something that can kind of help people begin to hear the language and learn it and kind of get used to being around it. So how do I say in a Myaamia context? When I was looking at or reviewing the how do I say method, I thought it was a very useful method that I'd definitely be interested in implementing into our community at some point. I had a few pieces that I would be interested in tailoring it more to our community. One of those being the mentors, which I think in the second edition they changed that a little bit. We have conversationally fluent, or I would say proficient. A lot of these terms don't fully encapsulate how much language an individual knows, because everybody thinks of these terms differently. And this is also an opportunity between a mentor and a learner for both to learn the language as they go along. So I was using myself as an example of a mentor working with a student who was maybe in Miami, Oklahoma. And so since we don't live together, using online resources, interacting via the web, and in any ways that we can for an opportunity for both of us to learn. And then with the diaspora, we can't really use it in the classroom. And so one of the other ideas that I had for our situation is we really need to implement technology a lot more for our situation. Because like I said, I've been to Washington State to visit our community out there a few times, and they're very interested, and they want to get involved, but they can't drive to Myaamia, Oklahoma, or Fort Wayne, Indiana. It's just too far, and it's not feasible. So how do we continue to connect with them as we continue to grow, and how do we encourage them to learn more language and learn more culture? Well, technology is the way for us to do that. And so we wanted to incorporate a lot more technology into the workbook to make it a better, more fit, more tailored to our situation. And this is also a good place for people to engage with the entire community, not just from a learner to a mentor. So how many people here have iPhones or smartphones? It's a good chunk of people. So I have one as well, and the vast majority of kids younger than me, and I'm 24, younger than me, have cell phones and are engaged with each other online or via apps somehow, whether it be Snapchat, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all these sorts of things. These are the places that they hang out. These are those new domains that exist now that we want to tap into and say, hey, I want to learn the language. Do you want to learn the language? Well, let's talk online. We can interact online. And then we can use those places as a way for the mentor and the learner, if they're separate. So like I mentioned, if I was a mentor to somebody in Oklahoma, how we could continue to converse. And we could do things like have a post of the day, engage in a set structured conversation online between the learner and mentor that's public, so that those who are interested can kind of participate via the web at their own choosing if they want to. So these are big things that we're really trying to get to use more. Facebook and Twitter especially. We use Twitter a lot. Those of us who are really trying to encourage our own growth as a place to test ourselves and to push ourselves in terms of language growth. And so for those of us who have a Twitter, who have kind of promised ourselves this, we only use Myaamia on Twitter. No English. And so when we interact with each other and there's a word on there that my dad has written that I don't know, then the conversation, all written, becomes, hey, what did you say there? How did you say it? Can you break it down for me? But this is all in the language. And so it's constantly pushing us. And then Facebook is huge for everybody, especially in our community, and people want to engage on there of all levels. So the Miami Tribe students at Miami University, they start posting in the language, even if they only know one word. That's good enough. That's a start. So when I asked you all to say Aya, well, that means that's our greeting. A lot of the Miami Tribe only knows that much. And so that's a start, though. That's a start to something more. And when they can use the language in the places that they exist a lot at, such as on Facebook, on Twitter, then they start to learn and pick up more and more. And so we engage on both of these social media sites in the hopes of gaining more interest in having a place for everybody to use the language. And so I think social media and technology in general should play a more prominent part of the how do I say method in our community. So with that being said, Mishinewe, thank you for listening. Time? All right, Mishinewe, thank you.